All right, let's talk about how to really learn something. I mean, truly understand it, deep down. We're going to break down an incredible method from none other than the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. This isn't just about memorizing stuff. It's a technique for cutting through all the noise and getting to the absolute core of any subject. So let's dive right in. Feynman himself just nailed the problem perfectly with this quote. He had this great example. He said, you could learn the name of a bird in every single language on the planet, but when you're all done, what do you actually know about the bird itself? Absolutely nothing. All you've done is collect a bunch of labels. And that right there is the huge difference between simply recognizing a term and really truly understanding it. So that's the big question, isn't it? How do we build that bridge? How do we get from just knowing the word gravity to actually grasping what it is, what it does, and why it matters? Well, this technique, this is the answer. Okay, but before we can get to the solution, we have to face the problem head on. And the problem is, well, it's us. We are absolute experts at fooling ourselves into thinking we know things. We've all done it. You read a chapter, you nod along, everything seems to make sense, but what's really happening is we're just mistaking familiarity for actual fluency. This is the foundation of the entire method. See, when we learn passively, just letting information wash over us, we create this powerful illusion of knowing. We start to recognize the words, the jargon, but we can't actually explain the machinery working behind them. This whole technique is designed specifically to shatter that illusion. So, the first step. It seems almost ridiculously simple, but don't let that fool you. This isn't just some small preliminary thing. It's a real act of commitment. This is where the work truly begins. It's as simple as this. You take a concept you want to understand and you write it down at the top of a blank sheet of paper. That simple, physical act, it creates what Feynman called a mental laboratory. It forces you to define the problem. You're basically drawing a circle around the idea and telling your brain, okay, for the next little while, this is the only thing we are going to think about. This. And this is why that first step is so crucial. You have to be precise. You can't just write the French Revolution at the top of the page. That's way too big, it's useless. But you can investigate the causes of the storming of the Bastille. You can't just tackle physics, but you can tackle the conservation of momentum. You've got to narrow your focus down to a single piece of the universe that you can actually hold in your mind. All right, now we get to the real core of the technique. This is where the magic happens. And to be honest, maybe a little bit of pain too. This is the challenge. Can you strip away all the complexity and see what's really left underneath? Here's what you do. You write out an explanation of the concept, but you have to pretend you're teaching it to a kid, say a sixth grader. This isn't about dumbing it down. No, it's about forcing yourself to confront what you actually know. A kid isn't going to be impressed by your fancy words. They just want to know how the thing works in plain English. And this just illustrates the point perfectly. Look at this. Jargon is a mask we hide behind. Saying mitochondria provides energy is just repeating a fact you memorized. But explaining it as a little machine inside the cell that burns food for power, now that is understanding. You're forced to describe the mechanism, not just rattle off the label. The big takeaway here is that you just can't fake simplicity. It's impossible. When you try to explain something in the most basic terms, any little crack, any gap in your understanding becomes immediately painfully obvious. There's just nowhere left to hide. So this brings us to what might be the most important moment in this whole process. This is the moment of discovery. It's when you finally find the exact edges of your own knowledge. You know how it goes. You'll be writing your simple explanation, everything's flowing, and then bam, you hit a wall. You realize you can't explain the next part without using a technical term you don't really get, like molecular repulsion. That moment you get stuck, that's the alarm bell going off. You've just found a gap in your knowledge. Now this is where you need a huge mental shift. For most of us, when we get confused, we feel kind of stupid. But Feynman said you should do the exact opposite. You should be delighted. Why? Because you've just pinpointed the precise thing you don't understand. The problem is no longer some vague fog of confusion. It's now a specific, clear target. I love this metaphor. It's so powerful. We like to think our knowledge is this smooth, continuous highway. But really, it's more like an archipelago, a series of islands of things we know. This step does more than just show you the islands, it shows you exactly where the bridges are missing. And now you can stop wasting time going over things you already know and focus all your energy on building those specific missing bridges. Okay, so you found the gaps. Now what? Well, this final step is all about going back, repairing your understanding, and making that knowledge truly, deeply, and permanently your own. So you don't just go back and reread the chapter. No. You go back with a mission. You're a hunter looking for that one specific piece of information that fills the gap you found. You have to wrestle with the text, really interrogate it, until you can translate it into your own simple words. And then, and this is so important, you close the book and try to explain it again from scratch. And when you're in that wrestling match with an abstract concept, there is no tool more powerful than a good analogy. Honestly, this is the secret weapon for building a bridge from something you already get to this new unknown idea. Just look at these examples. A totally abstract concept like electrical current suddenly becomes intuitive when you picture it as water flowing in a pipe, right? You can feel the pressure, you can imagine a clog. An analogy translates the formal, often sterile language of a textbook into the physical, intuitive reality of the world we live in. It proves you understand the behavior of the thing, not just its name. So the final goal here is to take your now repaired explanation and turn it into a smooth, simple story. A great test is to read it out loud. If it sounds clunky or awkward, your understanding isn't smooth enough yet. You have to hunt down every last piece of jargon, change torque to twist, and you keep refining it until it flows so easily that it just feels obvious. And when you get to that point, something really profound has happened. The information is no longer just a fragile string of words you've borrowed from a book. It's become a robust, living model inside your head of how a little piece of the world actually works. You don't just know it, you own it. See, this technique transforms learning from this passive act of just trying to memorize things into an active process of building understanding from the ground up. So really, the only question left is, what complex idea are you going to choose to make simple, to make clear, and to make your own?